Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wakar Kadash. Double honors to the elders, apostles of Great Millstone, preaching His word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, that be like unto the speckled bird, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. I say shalom to you Akim out there. And this is a quick sit-down lesson on this June the 28th, 2022 at 8:16 p.m. Central Standard Time. And the title of this quick sit-down lesson is going to be Wars and Rumors of Wars. And this is a news article. This is a news article recently by Reuters and published on June the 29th, 2022 from the Jerusalem Post. And a highlight of this news article, and it reads, joint drills by U.S. and allies are a step towards an Asian NATO N.Korea, media says. Right, because you already have you have already have North Korea and South Korea. They've been separated and divided against one another for quite some time now, and they trying to rekindle that relationship, I believe, because they had a long time hostility towards one another. And I just wanted to add that in there too. So I'm going to read this article. It says the joint drills by the United States, South Korea, and Japan. And that goes within, I believe, a couple of weeks ago, at the end of the month of May, I believe. That's when North Korea did their missile launch testing. And, in the United States and Japan and South Korea did a counter move using their nuclear capability as well too, with hypersonic missile launches as well too, to display their nuclear arsenal as well too, because they are allies, because the United States and Japan and South Korea, all three of those countries are allies against North Korea. And let me read this news article again. I had to add that extra note in as well too, because that goes into with South Korea, Japan, and the United States. Now they recently did a joint Navy exercise drill along the coast of the East Japan Sea, I believe. And what's going on over there in the South China Sea as well too, because you got different nations monitoring the situations and patrolling the islands over there in the South China Sea, because tension's been going on over there as well too, because you got Beijing over there, China, Taipei, United States, and Japan as well too, so I had to add that extra note as well too. Now I'm going to read the news article. It says the joint drills by the United States, South Korea, and Japan had a sinister aim towards North Korea and are a dangerous parallel to the creation of an Asian version of the NATO North Korean state news agency KCNA said on Wednesday. So these tensions are stirring up between these nations, and that goes into the nations shall rise against nations and kingdom against kingdoms. We seeing these different kingdoms It's basically like WWE or Royal Rumble or something like that. Mostly like it's a tornado tag or a triple tornado tag. These these three different countries tag teaming with one another against their adversaries with China, Russia, and North Korea and Iran. You might just throw that in for an example. So that's how it is right now, and that's how it's increasing of these different nations going against one another. These different nations going against their adversaries, their long history adversaries, or the new age modern day adversaries going against allies. So that's gonna further increase in these last days. Because like I mentioned before in my previous videos, you got, the Middle East tensions increasing even more than ever. Now I heard Turkey had cleared the ways for Finland and Sweden to be able to fully official to join NATO. Because you got tensions with NATO and with Russia. Because you got the Western countries and NATO and the United States as allies and fully support Ukraine, especially with the Russia-Ukraine situation thing. So you got a lot of wars, rumors of wars a lot going on in the world. With the increasing of these wars, these increasing of wars and rumors of wars, because it's gonna increase and escalate even more. Because you got the you got the Iran and Russia situation. Not Russia and Iran. I meant to say Iran and Israel situation. I meant to say, you got the tensions in the Middle East. The Turkey operations, Russian stationed down there. Then the South China Sea, like I mentioned before, different nations monitoring the islands over there. Nations trying to claim that they're for ownership of the islands. Over there in the Eastern Sea of Japan, the islands, offshores of the islands, and the South China Sea islands as well too. Then you got China is threatening United States and the Western allies as well too to pull Taiwan or Taipei away from from its being a sovereign country, because I believe Taiwan is part of Japan. Taiwan is part of China, and then China believes that these allies with Taipei or Taiwan, I believe, because I believe Taipei or Taiwan been a sovereign country for a while now, and they trying to fully separate themselves, because they trying to be like an independent country, because I believe they do got a large population, but they trying to separate themselves from China, but China saying that they'll do any means necessary to protect Taiwan to stay as with China, to be part of their country, and China said these nations trying to sway away Taipei from being part of China, because you're dealing with the mainland China and other different parts of China as well too. So tensions increasing over that. Tensions increasing over the South China Seas. Tensions increasing over the islands and everything like that in that region. So yeah, hey, I won't be surprised what North Korea was saying, that the Asian version, they got their own form of NATO, which is kind of funny, because these these European nations, they got their NATO. Now you got Asia with their own thing of NATO, But yeah, these tensions gonna increase between the U.S. allies, with United States, South Korea, and Japan, going against North Korea. Because North Korea, they got allies as well too, So, and China is probably one of those allies, and Iran as well too, and Russia. So you know how that goes. So yeah, hey, these tensions, and which is war-like type related, is gonna further increase even more and more, And I'm gonna bring out the wars and rumors of wars, as I always been bringing out in my videos, as of lately, as usual. This is the book of Matthew 24:6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass. But the end is not yet. Right, because the end is not yet. Because the reason why all these are increasing, of these wars and rumors of wars, and the nations arise against nations, and different kingdom against kingdoms, because this is biblical prophecy. We're living in biblical prophecy times of these things further increasing, and it's escalated even more and more. This build up between these nations going against one another. The nations that are allies with one another to go against their other adversaries, like a triple tag team. 3 nations that are allies are going against their other 3 adversaries of different nations, different nations or different kingdoms, increasingly going against one another. You're seeing these military exercise drills consistently being increased, these military drills, military exercise drills, military simulation attack type drills, hypersonic missile testing drills, ICBM, intercontinental ballistic missiles testing, and that can launch at a further higher range. It can hit different parts of different countries, different islands, It can hit close to the United States, places like Guam. I believe when North Korea did that test, that nuclear test. So yeah, then you got Iran with their Satan. No, Russia, I meant to say, with their Satan too. They sending threats as well too, with their nuclear capability. And these other nations, which is in the book of Joel 3 and verse 10, let the weak say I am strong. And that's what you are seeing of these nations, and these nations and allies that's close allies with one another. They're still on their nuclear capability. When Iran creating their uranium nuclear arsenal to their collection, building up their military's arsenal, building up their military protection, as he's doing these military drills, these nuclear missile launches, So, these things are increasing, Then you got other nations like India, Pakistan, North Korea, South Korea, Turkey, Ethiopia, Libya, and many more other countries, Philippines as well too. And many more other countries got nuclear capability just like any other nation. These other nations just got more nuclear capability more than the United States, because the United States is not that big bully no more, These nations they're not afraid of the big bad bully America no more. These nations are not afraid of America no more. And these nations don't really care if United States got allies. These nations got allies as well too. You know, and their allies is going to tag team with them. Just in case they are under a North American threat. Because these nations got nuclear capability and they got allies as well too. So yeah, So with that, matter of fact, no. Let me continue on with the verses I meant to say, Salaki. This is the book of Matthew, 24, verse 7. I went up a verse, so this is verse 7 in the book of Matthew, in the Holy Scriptures, and it reads, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places." Right, because we're seeing the increase of famine, which is the book of Amos 8 and 11. There shall be a famine in the land. There shall be a famine in the land, for there shall be no thirst or water or bread, but hearing of the words of the Lord. That's going to increase. You're going to see that in these last days as well too. The increase of famines, the increase of pestilence, different type of diseases and stuff like that. Earthquakes in diverse places. Because these are signs of the times that we're living in biblical prophecy times. In the last days. Because we're going to see these signs. And I'm going to bring out Luke 21 and 25. Since I mentioned about the signs and everything like that, this is the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 25. "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations and perplexity, the seas and the wave war." Right, because we're seeing the distress and perplexities of these nations. That's why you seeing uproars of the people, the increase of the nations, rise against nations, and different kingdoms against kingdoms. If it's from an economic sense of a protest, uproars of the people type category, and many other categories of these things are increasing. We've been seeing blood moons, we've been seeing signs with the blood moon and stuff like that, signs of the stars in the heavens, chariot sighting, UFO sightings. These are the signs of the times that we're entering into. And these signs are going to increase even more in the last days. That's why I brought out Luke 21 and 25. The distress of nations, because you're seeing the distress of these nations. Even if it's war type related between the different nations and different kingdoms, you're seeing uproars of the people with the protesters and stuff like that, going against their government, political leaders and political figures. Sedition among man. Invading one another. And that's what's going to happen in these last days with these wars increasing, with these military buildups against these nations, of the nations that's allies with one another, going against their adversaries. And it's going to build up and increase even more in these last days. So with that, I hope this quick sit-down lesson was edifying. Another update of wars and rumors of wars increasing more than ever. So every time I'm going to bring out videos, I'm going to do updates in regards to increase of the nations to rise against nations and the kingdom against kingdoms. And every time that I see these on the news or news article or alternative news, and then I'm going to do constantly updates when I see this, because these are biblical prophecies of the signs that the military build up of the nations and different kingdoms constantly, consistently going against one another, increasingly against one another. So with that, like I mentioned before, I hope this quick sit-down lesson was edifying through the spirit, power, grace, and mercy of Yahweh Yahushua. And first and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Wakakadash. Double honors to the elders, apostles of Great Millstone, preaching this word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim that be like unto the speckled bird, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And before I close out this sit-down lesson, on this June the 28th, 2022 at 8:37 p.m. Central Standard Time, these are the times that we are entering in, and there's going to be more and more increase in military buildup against the nations, going against one another, and in different kingdoms as well too. And there's going into increase of Revelations 11 and 14, roughly paraphrase. The second woe is past, and the third woe coming quickly. Just like the second woe passed, the third woe is increasingly, and it's getting even more closer and closer than ever. So with that, I would say shalom and above.